The Gran Turismo World Series headed over to Los Angeles yesterday for round 3 of this year's championship, and as expected we did get some more news on the upcoming Spec 3 update in December, including the news of 2 officially confirmed cars coming alongside the update, bringing our total now to 6 of the 8 cars now being known. And I'm going to talk about both of them in a few moments time, but before we do get into this video, I'm trying to get this channel to 70,000 subscribers. So if you want to stay up to date with everything GT7 and motorsport gaming related, then feel free to leave a like, subscribe and turn those notifications on. Anyway, let's get to it. So let's start things off then with the more talked about car of the 2, since one was actually only seen during a trailer and the first one was made a lot more of a fuss about. The main reason is because once again Polyphony have collaborated with another manufacturer, and this time around it's in the form of Polestar. Now I do have to say that it was a bit of a strange one to see them announce the Polestar collaboration at a non-European round. I do feel it would have probably made more sense to do this in maybe London or Berlin, as I believe if you're from Europe you'll probably be much more familiar with the brand itself. Now these days they're their own individual manufacturer in a sense, but I think most people will probably know them as a Volvo tuning company, of course making some incredibly high performance Volvos over the years, mainly from the late 2000s to the sort of mid 2010s. Now these days, even as their own individual thing, they are still very much in line with Volvo cars, and I believe they are still part of the same group. See this as something like Seat and the Cupra branding being their performance variants. It's a little bit different when it comes to Polestar. They are basically there to focus on high performance electric vehicles these days, which is kind of unfortunate since it's not very interesting for a brand that has some pretty cool origins. So let's actually do them a bit of justice and talk about their main origins then from the mid 1990s, when they were mainly known as a racing team in the STCC, which is of course touring cars. Now basically through the late 90s into the early 2000s they will continue doing touring car racing, and then of course in the late 2010s to the mid 2010s they were known as the official Volvo tuning company. Now again, this is where I mainly know them from you know, high performance Volvos, and I would say that it's really the turning point for the Volvo brand, being known for big tank like Swedish vehicles, incredibly safe and of course always awesome, to being shown that these absolutely massive Swedish tanks could have some pretty impressive performance in the correct hands. And honestly this is where most people, especially in Europe and such, would have properly become aware of who Polestar were. And then of course in 2017 they were basically founded as their own brand, and from there they would then focus on performance electric vehicles, which is honestly a bit of a shame given the company's origins. Now when it comes to the Polestar brand and gaming, they are not entirely absent, and they have been around before, mainly as one of the more iconic hero cars in recent memory in the form of the cover car from Need for Speed Heat. The car that you've seen here is the Polestar 1, which in my opinion is still the coolest car this company has ever came up with, and it's unfortunate that this one isn't yet confirmed, at least for Gran Turismo 7, as I do think this is an incredible piece of kit, of course being based on a design of a Volvo concept car from a good few years earlier. So what about the car that was confirmed as coming in GT7 Spec 3 update then? Well, this is known as the Polestar 5 Performance from 2026, and it will actually be the second car to have the 2026 year tag, the first being from one of GT7's latest updates, the Afeela 1 2026. Now in terms of the Polestar 5, this is pretty much a luxury sedan. It has a price tag of $120,000, so certainly not a cheap vehicle, but of course it will then need the performance to back up the claim that this is a performance electric vehicle. So it is all-wheel drive, of course electric, and in terms of the power, well, it's 871 brake horsepower, which sounds like a massive amount until you realize this thing, like most EVs, is incredibly heavy, weighing 2,503 kilograms. And I do have to admit that I actually like the look of the thing, but that's because I mainly like the look of Volvos, which again, being part of the same group, they do have that clear Volvo influence. However, in terms of how interesting this car is, I have to admit, it's certainly more than likely going to be the weakest car of this entire update. Now, as for the collaboration itself, Polyphony did do a big thing. Of course, they are collaborating once again with a real world manufacturer, which is never a bad thing in terms of, you know, PR for the game and of course the Polestar company. However, if you're active on YouTube, you probably did have a bit of a chuckle at this, as of course Super GT did upload a video looking at the Spec 3 update, and when he was going through some of the new cars, the Polestar 5 was right there on show. Now, in terms of the cost of the car in game, it's 120,000 credits, mirroring the real world price. But again, I did find this funny that prior to the actual live stream going live, Super GT or Steve uploads this video and pretty much entirely gives away the fact that the Polestar 5 is going to be there. So I did actually get a massive chuckle out of kind of seeing them make this big deal about something that was pretty much given away. Of course, the internet does talk these days, and of course prior to the actual event, I guess, going live, and even prior to that video, there was a bunch of Polestar vehicles spotted at the venue. Now, I do want to quickly touch on this because I think this is where most people will end up using the Polestar 5, and this will probably be the most use that we actually see of the car. Of course, there was the collaboration announcement between Polestar and Polyphony, and part of that is an official time trial where the fastest leaderboard time of that time trial from Spec 3 will actually be able to go over to Japan and be invited to attend the Gran Turismo World Series finals. So again, maybe it is worth getting behind the wheel if that's your kind of thing. Now, of course though, this wasn't the only car that was announced as coming to Spec 3, and I think this is going to be hyped up by a lot of people. There's been rumours of this car, I believe, as far back as the beginning of 2023. Of course, I'm talking about the Renault Espace F1. I think it's without question that the Espace F1 is one of the most iconic cars to ever feature in Gran Turismo history, right up there with the likes of the Suzuki Escudo Pikes Peak. Now, of course, it only ever featured in one single Gran Turismo game, and that was all the way back in 1999 in Gran Turismo 2, my personal favourite Gran Turismo title, and it's great to see it finally return in all its glory in Gran Turismo 7 over 25 years later. Now, as for the actual car itself, it's based on a second generation Espace. However, that's not really saying much because this is an entirely different beast. Of course, again, hints in the name here, F1. Yes, this thing is powered by a V10 Formula 1 engine. Now, the engine itself that powers this car is known as the RS5 F1. Now, this was used in 1993 and I guess most notably went on to power the Williams Renault of that year, which was the FW15C. Now, in terms of the engine itself, it's a 3.5 litre V10, and this one that's in the Espace is good for 817 brake horsepower, giving the Espace F1 a top speed of around 205 miles per hour and a 0 to 60 time of only 3.2 seconds, which is just absolutely insane. The car itself is rear wheel drive and of course features a 6-speed manual transmission. Of course, it's just an absolute icon of the Gran Turismo series, and again, I've been hearing rumours and leaks for the longest time about this car, and I just didn't really want to say too much in case it just didn't come true, but to finally see it in all its glory in GT7, including in VR, is going to be an absolute treat for the senses. Now, there is a cool little bit of trivia that I actually found when doing a bit of research on the release of this car for GT7, in that it will actually surpass the Nismo 400R as the biggest ever gap from a car featuring in one Gran Turismo title to the next. So again, when this car officially launches inside of Gran Turismo 7, the gap at that point will be roughly 26 years from Gran Turismo 2 to Gran Turismo 7, which is just absolutely insane to think about. And honestly, it's fantastic to finally see this car officially confirmed and not just be through leaks and such. It's going to be absolutely incredible to experience this one. And of course, that takes our total up now to 6 of the 8 cars officially confirmed. So far we have the Ferrari 296 GT3, which was the kind of main show of those original screenshots of Spec 3. We have the Gran Turismo Formula 3500B, the Polestar 5, the Renault Espace F1, and then of course we have the Mitsubishi FDO and the Nomyn BNR 34, which of course will arrive in GT7. Anyway, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. And again, if you do want to stay up to date with everything GT7 related, then feel free to subscribe to the channel. Massive thank you to you guys watching at home, and a massive thank you to all of my channel members. I will see you tomorrow. Take care, guys. Peace.